Hello everybody, I'm Shamaya, it's like papaya, and this is another mini-sode of Plot Twist Please. As you can see, I'm in a different location. I'm on vacation with the fam, and so this is my cabin. No, I'm not gonna give you a tour right now. Maybe I'll put that on my Instagram, so go follow me on my Instagram if you haven't already. Maybe I'll do a little tour there, but I am here on vacation, and so I'm gonna be doing lots of filming throughout the week. I'm actually really excited about it because I am kind of taking time away from my 9 to 5 to just breathe and recollect myself and reconnect with myself and with my family. And it's such a great thing to do every now and then, to just take a step away from the daily hustle bustle. As you know, I'm an actress and I'm taking a little breather, which everyone should do. Have moments of quiet for an extended period of time. I want to know, what is y'all's favorite kind of vacation? I might ask it on my Instagram story actually. Like, what's your favorite kind? A staycation, going away into the wilderness by yourself where no one can bother you, and you just have your own company, and where you can really deeply connect with yourself and with your environment, whether that be, you know, the woodlands, the forest, or a beach setting, or an igloo or something, you know, on the road, in a canyon, what have you. I want to know, what do your favorite kinds of vacations ideally look like? Some for another day. Today, I'm going to be talking about autism in girls and what that can look like at an early age. So if y'all don't know, I'm Shamaya, I'm an autistic actress, and I didn't know that I was autistic until I was about 23 years old, which for women is actually really early, because the psychology field is really skewed in terms of the data that they have, in terms of how they screen girls versus how they screen boys, and the fact that it is very gendered, how they look at autism in young people, and the fact that most women and most people of color and most people who do not identify as male fall through the cracks in terms of getting diagnosed at an early age. So for being 23 and knowing that I'm autistic, it's actually pretty early. A lot of women, and particularly a lot of women of color, don't know that they're autistic until they're about 40 or 50, or when they've really taken a minute to look at their entire lifespan and be like, oh yeah, that was different. That was a little different how I operated in an educational setting in comparison to my peers, or how I have gone about relationships my entire life, or how I have viewed socialization, or how I have moved through the world in terms of my sensory needs, or in terms of masking. Here's a little time out if you don't know what masking is. Masking is a way that someone can conform to the social norms in their environment in order to survive. So usually if you are growing up autistic, whether you know you're autistic or not, whether you know you're neurodivergent or not, you are adapting to your environment in order to get your needs met, in order to feel comfortable in any setting, particularly in social settings, or in settings where you have to interact with other people, either verbally, non-verbally, or just through instinct. Especially exchanges with strangers. If you're at a restaurant and you have to order food, there's masking involved there. If you are going to a job interview, so much masking. I'll probably do another mini-sode on masking later, because it actually is really complicated when you get into cultural norms. I'm a Black woman, and so the cultural norms that I'm used to in predominantly Black environments is different than the cultural norms that I'm used to in predominantly white environments. Those distinctions become really clear, especially when you have gone to a PWI for most of your life. For those of y'all who don't know, a PWI is a predominantly white institution, and I've been to a plethora of them. I have worked in them, I've gotten my education through them, so that's a whole nother can of worms, okay? A lot of the time, because women tend to be better at masking and girls tend to be better at masking, just due to the way we are socialized in society and due to the pressures that society puts on women and girls to be competent in social situations, and in a lot of ways to anticipate the social needs of our peers. Because of all of that pressure and expectation, a lot of us are actually very good at masking, to the point where even our therapists find it difficult to see through our masking in order to properly diagnose us. So it's a whole kit and caboodle. And that's part of the reason why it's so difficult for women and girls to get diagnosed. To an onlooker, it might be like, wait a minute, you are accurately showing the emotions that make sense in the situation. You are responding in a way that makes sense. There's no way you could be autistic because you're doing all the right stuff. But in reality, if you've grown up having to do the right stuff, or rather being punished for not doing the right stuff, either through social isolation, ostracization, someone who is AFAB or assigned female at birth typically get socialized into having to know what to do in a social setting, especially when it comes to being around other AFABs or other women or girls. Can we also talk about how exhausting that is? Like, can we take a minute to acknowledge how exhausting it is to constantly mask? Regardless of how comfortable you're supposed to feel around someone, regardless of how close they are to you, it can be really exhausting to have to anticipate the need in order to not be punished. Ooh, and also can add a lot of trauma. But yeah, when it comes to talking about the discrepancies between diagnosed boys and diagnosed girls, of people who have been diagnosed with autism, regardless of where they sit on the spectrum, even though the terms high functioning and low functioning are really ableist and don't actually reveal anything about the person as much as they reveal about the society in which the person resides or has to navigate. So let me know in the comments if you'd like me to talk more about the high functioning, low functioning labels and why they're problematic. I'd like to know what y'all want to see and what you want to talk about. Let me know. So without further ado, let's talk about the traits that you can find in a young girl that might be a sign that that young person is autistic. So there are actually a lot of ways, or I don't like to call them symptoms, because like autism isn't a disease and you shouldn't try to cure it. It's not a disease. But in every medical journal that I've seen, it has been referred to as something to be cured or treated and something that has symptoms. Anywho, I'm just going to say these are signs of someone potentially being autistic if they're a girl. So I work with young children who are autistic. I also work with children who are neurotypical, but I mainly cater to children between the ages of about 6 months old to 5. And some of those children happen to be autistic. So this is just really interesting. While I was doing research for this, I was able to call back to interactions with some of the kids I teach and being like, oh yeah, I mean, that child is autistic, so this makes sense. And even some children who are not yet diagnosed, where I'm like, oh yeah, you probably need to see a specialist and maybe we'll find out that you're autistic or had ADHD or that you are not neurotypical. Something's there. So that just made it really interesting while doing research for this video. One of the things that you might not consider is the fact that a lot of autistic girls do not consider themselves to be advocates for their own wants and needs. So something that you might see is the child expecting other children to speak for them or leaning on them to communicate with other children or with grown-ups around them. So it's actually really interesting because I was very much this way. I didn't really know how to speak for myself. I didn't really start advocating for myself until after college. It's fine. We grow. We grow. It's fine. It's fine. It's a journey. So that's something that I find common in a lot of autistic girls specifically. It's this, again, socialization to keep to oneself and to be orderly and to not cause disruption, especially when it comes to educational environments. Another kind of behavior that you might notice is them reacting sensitively to light, to sound, to, if you work in an educational environment, if there's loud clapping, which often happens in like a preschool, and they have an overt or even a subdued reaction where they immediately seem startled, whereas all the other kids are really into it and enjoying it, whether it's loud music or a lot of movement or a lot of activity. Some kids I've seen have started crying immediately if there was a loud applause in a classroom. Sometimes, particularly with younger girls, I've experienced like a 2-year-old booking it out of a room because it was too loud, or because we were talking about a story about a monster in that preschool class and everyone started roaring like a monster and she immediately booked it out of the room. By the way, a good tool that I like to use if you have what I call a runner and you sense that this child might have sensory needs that are, might have extra sensory needs, I like to give them an option of separating themselves from the class, either sitting directly outside of the classroom where you can still keep an eye on them and monitor them, but where they are also allowed to give themselves space and to advocate for themselves, to speak for themselves and their own needs, and to tend to those needs in a way that is safe and also honors them. So that's just a tool that I like to use. I like to tell them, if you need to take a break, you can, or if you need space, you can give yourself space. That's verbiage that I like to use. But yeah, so with the younger age group, I often see them just booking it or crying immediately. But with an older age group, maybe around age 5, what I might see is almost them getting easily frustrated. So if they are interacting with another child, I'll see them get really frustrated with the child when the situation is actually calling for them separating themselves and tending to their own sensory needs, or even you as an educator or as a grown-up in that situation, giving them the license to tend to those needs and to advocate for themselves. Because when you grow up, being told that you have to sit still in school and do what your grown-ups say, sometimes you don't know that you have the agency to isolate yourself when you are having that need. Another sign that I see is less obvious, but say you work in an educational environment and there's snack time and you notice that the child only eats things that are crunchy or only eats things that are squishy. Like if you serve melon and crackers, 9 times out of 10, they will only eat the crackers or they will only eat the melon, and they eat them the same way every time. Or if there's like the next day, if you have graham crackers and like pieces of watermelon, they will only eat the watermelon or they will only eat the graham crackers. And it's always this almost tactile approach. If you notice that, that might be a sign too. Another sign is they seem to be interested in a small number of things or one thing, but they seem to have intense knowledge about said thing. It's not that they are into dolls in general. It's like they only know about Polly Pockets. Do Polly Pockets are they still relevant? I don't know, because Polly Pockets were the business in my day, okay? They were everything, okay? You had the hair clippy thing, you had the clothes you could put on, you had the accessories, you had the Polly Pocket Dream House, like the whole thing, the whole 9. But they might know every single edition of the Polly Pocket, or they might know all of the different Polly Pocket dolls' names. They might know about the shows, they might know about the movies about that specific brand. Facts that the average child would not go through the lengths to know. In terms of how girls are socialized, if they seem to be only into one thing, one subject, and they seem to know about that subject extremely well, like to the point where they know more about you or more than the average child their age, might be a sign. One more sign is that the young child adheres very strictly to a schedule. So they might not know necessarily at age 2 that at 2 o'clock they have snack time, but they'll know the sequence of things that happen throughout their day, and they'll be very disturbed or confused, or might even have trouble emotionally regulating if said sequence does not continue in the way that it always has. So yeah, thank you for joining me on this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what I'm saying to ya. Again, this is Plot Twist Please. I'm Shamaya, and this has been another mini-sode. I'll see you next time, alright? Stay weird, y'all. Bye.